Hi guys, my name is Evans and welcome to this video. So in this video, I'll be looking at some software tools that you can use for your IGCSE ICT practical papers. Now, I have received a number of questions from teachers, students, asking me for my opinion or recommendation for certain software that I can use for conducting certain practical parts of especially practical paper 3. But I'll talk about the software for both practical paper 2 and paper 3 according to what I think would really help you to have in a computer room. Okay, so let's get started with what are software tools, okay, and why are they important to have in a computer room. Okay, so if you are a school and you are running ICT, IGCSE ICT, then you must know that you need software to be able to run the practical papers for that syllabus. Okay, so students will get into the computer room and they'll be required to do a practical exam in the computer room, and they will have to use certain software tools to be able to do that. So the software tools, they're just simply application programs that you will use in your computer room to enable the students complete the tasks that have been asked, whether in an exam or in just in their practice of the IGCSE ICT practical part. Okay, so both ICT paper 2 and paper 3 require these software tools, so they are the practical papers. And then the choice of these software tools is actually dependent on a lot of factors, or not too many, but quite a number of factors. Okay, I must state here that Cambridge doesn't choose software for a particular school, so they don't come to the school and say you'll be using this program and you'll be using this program. No. They have left that to the centers to decide what software they think is and feel is suitable for them to conduct the ICT practical papers. So this puts a huge responsibility on the heads of department and ICT, on the heads of department and ICT teachers to identify software that is suitable to conduct an ICT exam. Primarily, it's for an ICT exam anyway, because ultimately you want your students to pass the exam. So your focus is that the software that you're choosing should support the requirements of an exam setup. Okay, so let's look at some of the factors that you need to consider when you're choosing software for your ICT practical papers. Okay, now one of the most important things that every software must fulfill is meeting the syllabus expectations. Now, this is very critical because ideally we have a syllabus that we are teaching to. The syllabus requires us to do certain things, our students to perform or do certain things. Ultimately, our software should facilitate or help us or help the students accomplish those things that they are being asked by the syllabus. Okay, so you need to test your software against the syllabus objectives. Okay, for example, there was a question in one of the past papers that asked students to edit the color depth of an image. Okay, so imagine you have a software that doesn't have a feature which allows students to edit the color depth of an image. So I encountered this question actually when I was making a video for one of the videos for my YouTube channel, and I was using Microsoft Picture Manager to edit my images all this while. I mean, I never had any issue editing photos using Picture Manager until I came across this past paper which was asking the students to enhance or change the color depth of an image. And I checked throughout my Microsoft Picture Manager and I couldn't find a place where I could edit the color depth of an image. I had to switch to another software application, which was Adobe Photoshop, for me to be able to edit that part of the question. Okay, so again, it's important that you check that the software that you're using has that facility. So Cambridge will not spare you or will not forgive you or will not, tolerate the fact that you ran an ICT exam and it did not have or you did not have software which was meeting the requirements. I think this is going to be part of maladministration on your part, and as a center you may be fined for that, or you may be penalized for that. So you want to make sure that you are choosing software that you are comfortable that it is capable of meeting this, the syllabus requirements. The second thing is that the software must be offline. So as you are aware, internet is not allowed in an ICT exam. So access to the internet is not allowed. So this means that your software must be able to work offline. So you need to make sure that you are picking up software that is installed as a standalone software, or if it's a subscription-based software, that it is capable of working if there is no network. Okay. Also, you need to make sure that your software is supported and it is regularly updated by its developers. This is very, very critical. Some of the softwares that some schools are using are outdated and they are no longer supported by the developers. For example, if you're using Microsoft Web Expression, or you're using Microsoft Front Page to conduct website authoring, these software, they are no longer supported. We don't see regular updates released for these software. So this means that at some point they became outdated because technology has changed. Look at Microsoft Office Front Page 2003. It was released in 2003. That's like 18 years ago. Okay. So this means that there are many other things that may be, that may not work out or work around that software. For example, in website authoring, we are working with HTML5. Microsoft Office Front Page may be working with HTML3 or HTML4, which do not support video and audio embedding. So again, that becomes an issue because this is a bigger part of the new syllabus, the 2023 syllabus for ICT. You need to make sure that students know how to edit and videos or insert videos in their web page. Okay, so so that is on supported software and making sure that it is regularly updated, and also you need to verify that your hardware supports the software that you want to install. For example, certain computers may not be able to run Adobe products because they require a lot of memory. So you need to make sure that the software that you're trying to install is supported very well by the hardware infrastructure that you have in your school or at home, in case you're a homeschooled student. Okay, so very, very important that your hardware is to that standard. And I must mention here, guys, that it's very important that as a school or as heads of department or deputy heads or people entrusted with managing the ICT infrastructure in school, it's very important that we are always up to date as well with the changes in technology. There should be a deliberate policy of purchasing and furnishing the computer rooms with proper hardware that will allow the students that will not disadvantage the students in an ICT setup or in an exam setup. Okay, because some schools are still using old computers which are very slow and they crash every now and then, and students, you have to put up your hand every now and then calling for the supervisor. No, my computer has frozen, my computer has done this. It's very important as a school that we invest in infrastructure which is going to allow the students to conduct or do their exams uninterrupted. That way the students will be confident giving out their answers, and they know that if they fail to to do a particular question, it's not because the computer did not give them the opportunity to do that question. It's just because maybe they just didn't know. Otherwise, you'll find cases where students will be saying, I couldn't do this question because my computer was always freezing until I ran out of time. Okay, so very important that we invest in infrastructure to support our software applications to run the ICT exams. All right, so let's look at the structure of the paper 2 and paper 3 practical papers. And by structure here, I'm just going to talk about like what exactly are the chapters that you would expect to find in a practical paper, paper 2 and paper 3. Now, it's important that you understand that the ICT practical papers or the ICT practical syllabus has the chapters from chapter 11 to chapter 21. These are practical chapters, okay? And these chapters, they feature in some they feature in paper 2 only, others they feature in paper 3 only, and then there are others which feature in both paper 2 and paper 3. Okay, so we'll look at those that feature in paper 2 only. You'll find document production, databases, as well as presentations. These will be strictly papers that will feature, or chapters that will feature in paper 2. Okay, now there are other chapters that may feature in both paper 2 and paper 3. These include things like file management. Okay, this is where like you'll be creating folders, copying files and placing them there, checking the file, the properties of a file, and so on and so forth. Taking screenshots, and all that is file management. And then you can also have things like layouts. Okay, in document production, actually you have layouts, you have got styles, you've got graphs and charts, you've got proofing. All these, although they may not be mentioned here, like the way I've mentioned the 3 document production, database, and presentation, but when you run an ICT exam, or when you go to write an ICT exam, file management, styles, images, graphs and charts, layouts, all these will also be part and parcel of the ICT practical paper 2, as well as practical paper 3. Okay, so both practical paper 2 and practical paper 3 will have these topics that I've mentioned here. Okay, now in document production, let's look at some of the software that you can use to conduct a document production exam or questions or activities. The obvious one is Microsoft Word. It's by far the most popular word processor that is used in the world today. You've got 2 versions of it. You've got the standalone version and you've got the subscription version. So the standalone version is like a package that you can install as an offline software, and you'll be able to use it, you know, as a standalone software. But the Office 365 is basically a subscription software, and it is integrated with the internet. New features you can download on the go and use new features, have them access. But for Office Word, it really takes like the standalone version really takes time before you can, you know, get to see the newer features that have been introduced there. So you have to wait. For example, if you're using 2016, you may have to upgrade to 2019 to see some of the features that, you know, would have been introduced. Okay, then you can use Apple Pages. So again, if you're a person who is into Apple products, then Apple Pages, you may be aware that can also be used as a word processor to run your ICT exams. Now, I'm not so much an Apple person, although I have an iPhone. That's by far that's the furthest I've gone with Apple products, just, you know, having an iPhone. But so I don't know much about Apple Pages or Apple Keynote. You guys will use Mac, you know about those things, and you can use those things to build and solve questions appropriately. You can also have LibreOffice Writer. You can have Apache Open Office as other document production, or not document production, but let's say other word processors that you can use to be able to answer document production questions. Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on to database. Again, for database, the obvious software is Microsoft Access. You have got various versions, 2007 to 2019. It's important also that you are, as much as possible, or wherever possible, go for the newer versions of the software, because like in the 2007 software is no longer supported in terms of Microsoft is no longer releasing updates for that. So if there are new things that have been introduced, then you won't find them in 2007. So you need to make sure that you invest in more recent software packages so that students can access all the features that are important. Okay. Then the other software that you can use is also LibreOffice based. Again, this is an Apple-based software, so you can download it. I think the challenge has been, I don't know if that it has been sorted already, but in the past the challenge was that it was difficult to get Microsoft access to work on a Mac computer. I don't know if this has been worked around now, or now that we have Office-based subscription, maybe this can work around. Let's see how this can be done. Okay. So these are the different software that you can use for a database. Let's look at presentation. So for presentation, is the obvious one is PowerPoint. Again, from 2007 to 2019, go for the higher versions. The lower versions, they are becoming obsolete as time is going on. So you need to go for the higher versions. So if you're an Apple person, then you can go for Apple Keynote, and it will also do the same job as Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay, but if I was to be given an opportunity to choose one, I would choose PowerPoint. Now let's look at quickly the structure of Practical Paper 3. So again, for Practical Paper 3, you've got two chapters that are dominant, which is Spreadsheet and Website Authoring. And then the other chapters also, you just need the skills from them. Like for example, you need to know how to handle images and graphs and charts. You might be required to create a graph or a chart in a spreadsheet package. You might be required to handle an image in website authoring or in spreadsheet. You might be required to proofread and check that the content is correct, or you might be required to perform file management, move files, copy them from one folder to the other, and so on and so forth. So these other chapters also, they are critical to a paper 3, but the dominant chapters are spreadsheets and website authoring. Okay, so let's look at spreadsheets. So for spreadsheet, the obvious one is Excel. Again, from 2007 to 2019, go for the higher versions of this. The lower versions are becoming obsolete, and in fact, by the way, Microsoft, let me put it this way, they have introduced a new lookup function. We have been used to the H lookup and the V lookup. Now there is a new one, which is the X lookup, and it is in the syllabus for the 2023 ICT syllabus. So you don't want to have a new feature and then you're still using an old software which may not support that. So it's very important that you check. Excel now, you need some plugins or extensions for you to be able to run XLOOKUP. Otherwise, you will not be able to use XLOOKUP. So if you're an HOD, you are a deputy head, that you're in charge or responsible for ICT infrastructure in school, this is one thing that you should really take from me here, that there is the XLOOKUP, and the standalone version of Microsoft Office does not come with that. So you may need to have a plugin or an extra, extension that will allow you to use the XLOOKUP. Otherwise, Office 365 has this feature already, and you can easily just use that. That's the beauty about Office 365. Okay. You can also use Apple numbers. I'm not so sure whether Apple numbers will have things like XLOOKUP yet, but I'm sure they are also looking at ways of having it brought on board if it is not yet on board. Okay. Now, for website authoring, and this is where it gets very interesting, because there are tons of software that you can use here to conduct this. But what is important for website authoring is that you should know that we are using HTML. That's number one. And that we are also using cascading style sheet, CSS. That's number two. Okay, so any software that you choose in this regard must be able to help you accomplish or code in HTML as well as code in CSS. Okay, so Top of my list is Adobe Dreamweaver. It's by far the best. I would recommend Adobe Dreamweaver because it is a regularly updated software. It has got so much support from the developers, and running on HTML5, which is the latest version of HTML, supporting videos and audio editing and embedding videos and stuff into your HTML code. This is good. Like, this is very, very good. Older versions of website authoring software like Front Page and Web Expression, these, of course, they may do the basics of that, but when it comes to complex things like videos and stuff like that, you might find that there may be a limit, because these, I think they should be using HTML4. If not HTML4, then it's HTML3, version 3, and that means it's another version. HTML5 is by far the latest version, which supports code embedding and stuff like that. So you need to make sure that you have the latest version of the software. You can also use Composer. Again, Composer is another version of the software. You can test it out to see whether it is that's been upgraded. You can use Komodo, you can use Notepad++, you can use Visual Studio Code, you can use Sublime Text, and so on and so forth. Now, I must mention here that Notepad++, even though it is good, or Notepad, let me just say Notepad, not necessarily Notepad++, but just Notepad. I've had a number of students who've complained to me that their school forces them to use Notepad to write HTML code. Now, the fact that Cambridge doesn't choose software for us as a school, as teachers, we shouldn't, choose software that makes it difficult for students to learn or to follow. Ultimately, we want them to pass the exams. If a student goes in an exam and they feel that Notepad is a hard software for them, it'll be very difficult for them to have psychologically prepared, for that paper. So we need to make sure that the software that we choose, that the students are comfortable, and if there's need, if it's possible, let the students have variety. Like, those that are comfortable using Notepad, they can code in Notepad. Those that are comfortable using, for example, Dreamweaver, they can code in Dreamweaver. But don't impose, even though the students feel that this is hard, okay? So some students learn very well with graphics. Notepad may not be the best for them. But because those that are used to graphics, they may be used to, like, working with Microsoft Word or PowerPoint and stuff like that. They know that you can insert a table just by going to File or Insert, and then select table and select the columns and stuff like that. That same concept can be done in an IDE that supports graphical facilities for website authoring. So you can insert a table in Dreamweaver, you can insert a table in Front Page, you can insert a table in Web Expression. But when it comes to Notepad, you have to type code to insert a table. So again, my advice is, please, let's go for software that will make it easy, because ultimately we want our students to gain good marks. It's not necessary if some of them were not going to be, like ICT experts, for them to know coding, it's not like the computer science class where you want them to know how to code. But for an ICT class, you just want them to appreciate, the use of technology rather than, them building and creating software. Okay. So that is that for us to understand. All right. So let's go on to image editing software. Like I said earlier on, that image editing software is critical because you want to make sure that the software supports the editing of images. I mentioned earlier on that color depth is a big issue that most image editing software don't handle. So you need to make sure that the choice of software is that one which can handle that. In this case, Adobe Photoshop, I found it to be very comprehensive. It is up to date, and most of the things that the syllabus asks of it can actually do. So that is that. You can also use CorelDRAW. You can use Microsoft Picture Manager, but it has got a limit when it comes to color depth. You can use Office, Word, or PowerPoint, but they also have limit when it comes to color depth. Okay, but you can use them to do things like cropping, resizing, changing the contrast, all these things these two can do as well. You can also use Paint. You can also use Photos to do that. So again, you just need to know how much these software items can help you do some activities in your practical papers. Okay. Now, this is very important. Now, there are other software tools that I may not have mentioned here, but I encourage you that if you do have a software tool that I've not mentioned and you do use it in your school, kindly comment it out in the comment section below, and I will come back and I will get that name of the software, and I'm going to add it in the description so that other students and other teachers can see what software you're also using, and perhaps maybe they can also use that software. Okay, so the list is not exhaustive, so you can add a number of software items that you are using, and I'll be very happy to see some of those, and I'll add them in the list so that other people can benefit from them all. So I think I'll end here for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it very informative, and I will see you in the next video when we do more ICT videos. So thank you so much, and bye-bye.